Don't call it ramble. Call it riff.
Exactly.
You're riffing.
Then it sounds super.
It does. Yeah. That's just it's a little jargon. In the business jargon, we're just riffing.
They're like, oh, they must have did that on purpose then.
Exactly.
They said they're riffing. So.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Even when we don't know what we're doing,
exactly,
it still comes out super fun.
Most of the time.
See, you should have just rebranded with the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
Steph and Alex.
Not a bad idea.
Welcome to the Expansion Project with Alex Oradola and Stephanie Chenis. Listen and process life with us.
Hello, Expansion Project. Alex is here.
And Steph is here.
What's up?
Hey, guys.
Have you missed us? We took another sabbatical.
We did. It was
after our third sabbatical.
All right, let us explain. All right, so first off, we were supposed to record. Steph unfortunately fell ill. She got sick.
I keep getting sick.
She got sick. So that's the sickness. The first time.
Sickness one.
And so, and then the week after, I was in Florida. So I went to Orlando for a few days, and I came back, and then we were supposed to record next week, but then we had a golden opportunity to have somebody on our show this week. We'll reveal him in a second. He's just chilling, waiting for a signal. He's very excited.
He's gonna jump in.
And so we were like, let's just record next week, and that way he can be on the show, and we can do that. So now we are here.
We're here, and we're live.
It's been a little bit past our scheduled upload date, but we are here. We're back. We missed you guys.
Yeah,
Steph.
I missed you guys too.
We both missed you, and so we're glad to be back. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for just waiting, and we're glad to be back on the pod expansion project. And so real quick before we jump in, we'll do our usual rigmarole. Some housekeeping. Haven't said that in a while.
I've missed that phrase.
Right?
I've missed that terribly.
So just really quick, just want to continue to plug the email, our Gmail, expansion podcast, gtcc@gmail.com. Hit us up. Send us a message. Say literally anything. We just want to hear from y'all.
Yep.
Start a conversation. If you have a prompt, or direction for the show, anything you want to say to us, encouraging words, or even criticisms, we'll
take it.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
We'll be sad, but we'll take it. As our guest takes his phone out.
Our guest already has a list.
He's like, oh, that's a good idea. Hit us up at Expansion Podcast, gtcc@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys saying thank you so much for the encouraging words. And likewise, we have an Instagram. You want to tell them about it?
Yes, we do. You can follow us at Expansion Project Podcast on Instagram. And thank you all for liking all of our posts. We appreciate that so much.
Thank you. And it's the best way to keep up with the news for the channel. If we do postpone a date in the future, which will probably happen, check out that Instagram account.
Stay tuned.
And you'll know. And that way you'll know. And you won't show up and be disappointed when there isn't an episode.
Correct.
You'll be in the know. So, follow us there too. And, if you feel like it, if you're feeling fancy, leave us a 5-star review on Apple.
Yep.
We want to beat the Joe Rogan Experience, #1 on the charts.
He's #1, but we're going to beat him.
Dog. We're coming for you.
We're going to beat him.
It's the throne's ours, okay? So, we think we have a good shot.
We're either going to beat him or we're going to have him on the podcast. So, if anyone
either
has a connection...
Amazing. That would be so great. So we're still holding out on the dream of him hosting an episode of Fear Factor for us.
Just for us.
So we like to shoot for the stars here on the podcast. So if you know him, let him know about us.
Send him an email.
So, all right. I think that's it. Right? Anything else we need to mention?
No, I think that's it.
All right, that's it. All right, so we're excited today. We have a very special guest on the podcast.
Woohoo!
Corey Matelli is here with us.
I'm jumping in now.
He's jumping in now. We told him to wait to jump in, and he did an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
I forgot that this is an audio medium, so I was over here like doing visual stuff, but I'm trying to be a distraction every way I can.
Hopefully you guys could hear it. He was doing just the most, just visual cues. So
it was great.
Yeah,
it's actually what we needed and what we're missing from our podcast.
But I felt like we were missing something, and that was it. Just like movement.
You're the
But yeah, Corey is here on the show. We're so excited to have you. He is the head deacon here at the church, board member, former worship director here at the church. I actually, I'm directing the worship team now, but he was the director before me. So I inherited that from him. And just an amazing dude. As you can hear from his voice, I've always thought that he had like this golden, like just...
Me too.
that radio voice.
I literally feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Literally.
So when I heard that he was interested, I was like, "Yo, he would be perfect."
He's got the best voice.
I used to work in radio, which was fun. That was something I grew up always interested in, was radio.
Really?
Which worked out well because I have a face for radio. So so radio was a perfect medium for me.
It took me a minute. I was like, oh.
You're right. Oh, wait. No. That's actually awful.
I was like, oh, I get it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no. So, and I worked in Christian radio for a number of years, which was a lot of fun. What you now know as K-Love,
Yeah.
I worked there. So so the original radio station was a local Christian station in Santa Rosa, California, known as KCLB at the time, and then eventually it grew into a small network of Christian. They had basically repeater towers, which would blast the signal around. Because before you couldn't even hear the station at the other end of the building. The signal was so weak. And then eventually it started growing. We put in repeater towers so you can get different parts of California, Northern California, then stretched a little further. And eventually it evolved into the network that is now known as K-Love.
What?
Yeah.
That is really cool.
I actually had no idea.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Dang. Okay. So that's the origin story. You were there at the top, huh?
Yeah. At the beginning of all that stuff, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I bet. Wow. Okay. So you can bless us with some of your intimate radio knowledge. I feel like it's already kind of.
That's all I know. That's
our
all I got.
production quality is just going up.
I just gave everything I got. So
That's awesome.
good night, everybody.
It's just the end of the episode.
Did you get to meet any famous Christian artists?
Well, this will age me a bit, but sure. Yeah, we used to host concerts and things, but this was back in the days this is in the late 80s, mid 80s to early 90s when I was there. So artists that have come and gone that most people nowadays have never heard of, bands and things like that. So names like let's say like White Heart was one of the first concerts. Have you ever heard of White Heart? Brian Duncan and a little known group at the time known as DC Talk. Yeah.
Oh shoot.
No.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Obviously Toby Mac is and
yes.
So that was those were fun days.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So and get to meet a lot of people and it was a lot of fun. You get to know a lot of things about people, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right,
there's stage, even in Christian circles, people have kind of a stage persona, and you can kind of see the people who are what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And other people have a little bit more, and this was back in the big hair days. So you get guys, and they'd have guys with tons of hairspray and everything. It's like, what? But they'd come in earlier in the day and do like an interview, and you didn't recognize them.
Because it was just down, huh?
They was just down. And then they come back later, it's like, poof.
For the show.
Yeah. Wow.
Spray and...
Yeah.
Yo, I forgot about that. That's so true.
That's cool.
Back in those days, yeah. So
dang.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And obviously, like, nowadays you can probably see this shift from radio to now podcasts. Like podcasts are everywhere, and you see a lot of individual created content like this, but yeah, radio, what was it? Radio walked so that we could run, or is it the other way around? Yeah, I don't remember the saying. Anyway, this is why I'm not on the radio.
Oh man.
Who's with me? But that's so cool though. That's so cool. I also know, and this just popped in my head, man. You're from the West Coast, man.
Yeah.
Like you were originally from, is it San Fran?
Well, yeah, I'm a suburb of San Francisco, a little town called Petaluma.
Okay.
That's where I was born and raised, but my roots are in San Francisco. My dad worked in San Francisco. My grandparents on both sides, aunts, uncles, cousins, San Francisco. So I spent the bulk of my childhood in and around San Francisco. Yeah. So the roots run deep there. I still have a lot of family there.
Yeah. That's cool. Is I guess one of my bigger questions is, because whenever I see somebody from the West Coast moving here, I'm like, why?
Yeah. And that's a funny thing. When I was first here and getting to know people here and there and everywhere, and it would come out that I'm from California, or they'd sense the lack of New England in my accent.
That was good.
And it's like, I'm from California. And it's like, there's no pride among New Englanders because they look at me like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you move here? What are you, an idiot? It's like, don't you love where you live? Why are you questioning me on this? Whereas in other parts of the country, like, hey, you finally got here. No, here it's like, what are you, stupid? It's freezing here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, well, in my story, and I think I'm being set up because you got to know this story. My wife is from here.
Right.
So how does a guy from, California meet somebody who lives in like the tiniest town in the tiniest state? Well, we met online.
There you go.
So I was flying out here and getting to know her, and things were going really well. And it got to the point to where it's like, okay, this bi-coastal romance thing is really cool in Hallmark movies,
right?
But real life, it doesn't.
It's
hard.
hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so we were never going to get out of fantasy land of the Hallmark type of genre of like you get off the plane and and you spend a week and it's like and then you get on the airplane and then you go back to normal and then a month later it starts all over again. So it just came a point where God opened doors for me to be able to transition and move here. For her, it was not going to be something where she could move out to me, even though climate-wise that would have been ideal. California, hello.
Right.
But and looking back, man, I don't look back with an ounce of regret, not one single moment. I moved out here. Now, it was challenging.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit before we started. We were talking a little bit about change. The change was radical and not easy. There were no guarantees. I moved out here with no guarantees. I just sensed that God was opening a door for me. And obviously the impetus behind it was hopefully to marry this woman who was my dream. But there were no guarantees. So it was just like, we're going to have to date. We got to get to know each other in reality and experience each other. This has got way more serious. I'm sorry.
No, dude, this is what we want. Yeah, go for it.
No, it's like, oh, we're silly. We're crazy. Then I come on, it's like, oh.
No, it's not. Stop.
All the energy's out of the room.
No, it's not.
You guys are side-eyeing each other like, why did we bring him on?
Stop it.
We'll cut the episode.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
No.
No, this is awesome. This is truly awesome.
But no, and so there were no guarantees, and it was 2 or 3 years of me being here, and things were not going according to the dream. The Hallmark movie is only 2 hours long. This was 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So I moved here in March of 2014. So I guess it was 2.5 years to be more precise. We got married in October of 2016. So things did work out, but man, it was a bumpy pothole, to use New England vernacular. A lot of potholes.
A lot of potholes. Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Oh,
so
man.
it was a challenge, bumpy road, but it was awesome. And despite the long, frigid, horrible, disgusting, terrible, no good, very bad winters, I'm here and I love it, and I'm happy to be here. And like I said, no looking back. I don't miss California. I miss my friends. There are certain things, activities, places, whatever, but life, I'm living my dream right now. So
I love that.
And this church has been amazing. The people, so God has just blessed me. I got to tell you another story.
Go for it,
related to that. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
This is mind blowing. Some people listening to this have heard this story, but when I was in California, I moved from one town. I was serving at a church, And God opened the door for me to go to another church, a very big and prominent church in our district, Assemblies of God district. Mm-hmm. And so God had opened a door for me to transition there. It was about an hour or so away. So in my process of moving, I landed a job. I didn't yet have a place to live. So I had a church and a job, but no place to live yet. This is, kind of the stepping stones. First, I started with the church. Then I got a job. And then the place to live was still in limbo. So some people I got to know through the church in the music department there had said, we have a mother-in-law unit in the backyard. You're welcome to stay here during the week while you work until you find a place to live. And then I'd go home on the weekends and kind of do laundry and do that kind of stuff and then come back for the next week. Fast forward to when I moved here, okay? First thing I had was really almost a relationship with with my girlfriend to a certain degree, but we're still getting to know each other.
Right.
I had a place to live that was temporary because some people that we knew were missionaries. And they were out of the country, but they were going to be returning home within a month. So they said, you could stay at our place until we come back home. Then you got to get out, and that's going to be our home. Yeah. All right. So for that first month, I was there, kind of settled in. And then I was going to need a place to live. And the founding pastor of Glad Tidings, John Teeter, was getting to know him, getting to share my story with him a little bit, getting familiar with him. And he says, as it turns out, one of our sons just recently moved to San Francisco. So it's like this.
Way.
So it's like this. That's not even the mind blowing part yet. I haven't gotten to that. Yeah. But so there's kind of like this prisoner exchange thing. Yeah. So I moved out here. He moved out there. So he said, we have an empty room upstairs. You can stay as long as you need.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So a few months into that, I'm upstairs in my room at their house, and I'm flipping through Facebook on my phone, and a good friend of mine, the guy whose house I stayed at when I was transitioning to San Jose, California with the mother-in-law unit, he was in Boston with his family. So I was like, dude, what are you doing in Boston? You're like an hour or so from me. He goes, oh, I'm here for a family reunion. It's like, oh, that is so cool. Whatever. Maybe we could connect or something like that. And then it was after that it dawned on me that the Teeters were having a family reunion. I was like, what? And I looked at his profile and noticed that they were friends.
No.
My friend from California and the Teeters were connected on Facebook. Now I'm starting to put two and two together, but my brain is starting to kind of trying to process all this.
Right.
It turns out that my friend in California and Pastor Teeter here in Rhode Island, their mothers were sisters.
No way.
They were first cousins.
What?
So the very same family in California who said, hey, we got a mother-in-law unit, you can stay in our backyard, and the pastor here in Chepachet, Rhode Island, says, we got a room upstairs, you can hang out here. They were first cousins.
That is astronomical.
And so I'm looking at this going, God, you didn't need to do this, but man, you have left not a trail of breadcrumbs, but the yellow brick road that you cannot miss to say this is where God wants you to be. And little things like this were just like, wow. In that sense, in that regard, you are where you're supposed to be, and God wove all that together, and it's like,
wow,
absolutely mind blowing. But it's just that's how God works sometimes.
That is so cool.
So anyway, let's get back to shenanigans, shall we?
That's insane.
I did not know that story, so to hear that is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine.
I love sharing it.
I can't even imagine like what you were thinking in that moment. Like, oh my goodness, they're related. Like,
yeah.
And there were times, because like I said, it was a bumpy road. There are times where in your silent moments, you're like, oh, did I make a mistake? Did I jump the gun? Did I, you start questioning everything in your life, and because you don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Did I do the right thing but the wrong time? Did I push it? Did I whatever? Because this was very early into our relationship, but again, doors seem to open, and you think like, God's opening doors, and I'm just gonna go.
Right.
Don't ask questions, just go. And then things don't work out, and you're like, oh my gosh, did I mess up? How did I screw this up?
Right.
And then God just relax.
Yeah.
I got this, and let me show you how I'm in the middle of this.
That's so cool.
And then that was it for me, and it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that didn't settle a lot of other things, but at the same time, what it did was God saying, I'm in the midst of all of this.
Yes.
I'm part of these details that will blow your mind. There's probably other things I still haven't even figured out.
Sure.
I don't even know. But that was enough in that moment to just...
that was enough.
That was enough to just like, I'm comfortable. I am where I'm supposed to be. Thank you, Lord.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like the best confirmation from God.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like literally.
Oh my gosh.
At a time I needed it because
Exactly.
there was very little in my life that was you could really set firmly on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the church was good to me, but even then,
Yeah.
I just kind of came in and blended as best I could. I wasn't like, hey,
Right.
I'm Corey. How you doing? Hey, I
exactly.
sing. Hey, I do this.
Right.
I didn't do that for a year.
Wow.
I just sat in the back and just kind of like got to know people and
Yeah.
just kind of assimilated as best I could. Not come in here with, hey, I can do this, I can do that. Let me do this. I want to get involved. I was just like, I'm just going to get assimilated. Watch this church, which was also going through a growth period because at that time, Pastor Teeter was kind of phasing out, and Pastor Tim was
That's
phasing
right.
in.
Yeah. Yep.
So there was a transition within the church at that time too. So I'm just kind of behind the scenes of all of that, which is fascinating. So in the history of this church, to have been through each of the three pastors that we've had in our history,
right, yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
but in a much shorter, because there are people who've been here from
Right.
when this church was before this church was a church. So
Right.
they've been here throughout the whole thing. But in my 9 years of living here, all that has happened within the history of this church.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a fun ride from my vantage point.
I bet.
Yeah. So now you guys are here, and,
know.
and you're changing the climate. And
Hey.
you've got this world famous podcast that's
I
going
know.
to overtake.
Everybody's
Rogan.
hearing it around the world.
Number 2.
Number 2, we're coming for that number 1 spot. But we just go
We're
back to that topic.
gonna be them.
No, those are my absolute favorite testimonies to hear. Is like specifically those like confirmation testimonies where God, like He's also providing, right, and He's also taking care of you. But the centerpiece of that testimony was God confirming that I got this and I got you. Like this symbolic, representation of God's hand over your life in that moment. Just that idea, the entire idea of leaving to go across the nation for any reason, to me at least, is scary, man. Like that's scary to do. I think about my dad, who left, Nigeria to come here. And quick funny story, he left to come to the States on a foreign exchange program. Turned out to be a sham. And he got here, showed up to the office, and it was cleared out. Kind of like a sitcom. It was like, and he was just like, okay. So he just went to college. Yeah. And the rest is history. But that, like, moments like that, those are thoughts that I have all the time when it comes to like taking large leaps of faith like that and leaving your home to go somewhere and you're not even sure if it's going to work out. And just, and many times in my life, going to Bible college, coming here, like I've had small moments like that where God gives me these symbolic gestures and He doesn't have to do that.
Right.
Because we're supposed to be faithful regardless, He doesn't have to.
Yeah.
But like He loves us enough to be like, let me show you why you should trust me here. Even though you already know why you should trust me.
Right.
Let me show you why you should. Let me show you how much in control I am of this situation.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Those are the coolest testimonies to me, man.
Yeah, well, and my parents were examples to me because when my dad retired, he was a cop in San Francisco, and when he retired early because he sensed God was leading him into ministry, and he didn't even know what that was at the time, and God ultimately led them to begin a ministry, basically a missions type ministry in Costa Rica.
Wow.
So they literally sold their home, and what they couldn't take with them, they sold, got rid of, gave away, whatever. And then they moved to Costa Rica. They built property. They bought some land and then built on that property. And that was going to be their, and God had given them a vision and all this, I'm really truncating this story to for time.
Oh yeah.
But this took time.
Yeah.
And many trips down there and to do all of this stuff and a lot of red tape for Americans to come into a foreign country and do all this stuff. And then when they got there, everything could possibly go wrong and things you didn't think were possible all went wrong. And my dad was a pillar of strength in my life. And I remember having a conversation with him on the phone where he was telling me he was questioning whether they did the right thing. I've never seen my dad. I never saw him so vulnerable or questioning in his life. And he was literally saying, I don't know if we did the right thing. That's how bad things had gotten. And so this was one of those rare opportunities where there's a total role reversal, where I'm now giving him counsel, which was never the way it was.
Yeah.
He was always giving me wise counsel. But I had to remind him of what God had done and kind of remind him of the trail that they had taken to get to this point.
Right.
And just kind of like set his feet again. And it was good. But what I learned from that is that when God is leading you to something, you're willing to take that gigantic, and sometimes it starts with little ones, going off to college or doing some relatively smaller things.
Right.
But the bigger the leap, the bigger the risk. And it's not always, in fact, I haven't really heard of a case where it's ever gone smoother than they thought, or even as smooth as they had hoped. There's usually going to be some challenges, some difficulties. And certainly that's been the case in my experiences like that in the one I just shared with you a few minutes ago. And in my parents, but that's where it's like, God, test your resolve. And if my objective was simply to marry my wife, well, I achieved that almost 7 years ago. Then what? Right. But God has, that's one little part of the story. Now, that part of the story is fundamental and foundational with everything else in my life.
Right.
But if that was the goal, I achieved it, now what?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but God has been faithful in a lot of ways in through this church and through the relationships and everything else, professionally, socially, you name it. That was just one piece of the puzzle in how God has used all of that to make really a cool story. So, but you have to endure a lot of stuff. You have to grind through it. You have to, for your father, for my family, with myself, is your desire to obey God has to be greater than your fears. Okay. When you can be focused on that, and that's, I'm going to trust God, I'm going to obey God, and no matter what happens around me, I'm going to stay focused on that. When your faith is greater than your fear, then you got this. Yeah. And God will reveal it. And he it's like when you're learning to ride a bike, it's like you're exactly. But Dad's right there, right? Exactly. I got you. Right. I'm not going to let you fall. Yeah. I'm here, and we'll keep it. And that's how God is with us. It's like, I'm here. I got you. Right. I'm spotting you. We're good. And and sometimes it feels like he's not there, but then when you realize when you need it the most, I've been here all along. I'm right here. Yeah. So he's been very faithful to me.
Jeez. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so rad.
So good.
Sorry. Let's laugh.
No, that's super relevant.
I think that's needed, and I think people kind of need to hear these testimonies, because sometimes people feel stuck, or sometimes they feel like questioning themselves, like, did they make the right decision? And it's like, hold on, trust God, and just remain in this process with him.
Yeah, obeying God, doing the right thing doesn't mean everything's going to go right. In fact, if it's going right, that's when bells and whistles go off in my head.
There's a red flag.
Yeah. So it's like, but we're humans, and we don't want to disappoint God. We don't want to make mistakes. We think that anything that happens that's bad is a result of something we did that's bad.
Right.
And it's not. That's just not the case.
Right.
When you step into a life of faith, you can count on stuff's going to blow up at some point. Yeah. But that's almost like, okay, I'm just going to be that much more diligent. I'm going to press in that much deeper and just trust. I'm going to ride this out. Yeah. And trust me, even if you make a mistake and you jump the gun or you did something quite out of, it's like, I used to call it like the GPS, recalculating.
Yeah.
That's what God is. It's like, okay, well, I didn't necessarily want you to do that, but here we are. What can we do with what we have now? Let's get back on track, and we'll get you going the right place. But follow me. Yeah. Watch here. Follow me. Yeah. And we'll get there. Yeah. So, and I think that's a universal thing. So that's something we all go through, and we've all questioned, and maybe somebody's right now going, oh, man, I think I made a big mistake. Okay. But here you are. So what can God do?
Exactly.
So powerful stuff.
Yeah. Powerful. It gives people hope.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Which is needed. Very much needed.
Tell me about it. Yeah. No,
What do you guys want to talk about?
This.
I just derailed.
Exactly this. This is the I love talking about this stuff. I mean, we're still doing good on time. So let's I think that that's super relevant now for this church, because as we're stepping into this new season, and I think we talked about this last time we talked about the wall. By the way, the wall has been knocked down. Like, we have the extension to the sanctuary is finished, and now we're just doing the finishing stuff. Like, we're waiting on carpeting, chairs, all that stuff. So by Father's Day, which is in a week and a half.
A week and a half.
Yes.
Whoa.
In a week. Yeah, I know. I know.
No pressure.
I know. Like, it felt like last week we had a wall, and now it's like
Christmas is in 6 months.
oh my goodness.
I need to start shopping now.
Yeah.
I know.
We're in trouble.
It's already too late. Yeah, and on Father's Day, we're planning on having everything done, and we're switching to one service and all these changes. And I think last time we talked about the wall, we talked about the change and how scary it is, and I love how this is kind of like a supplemental episode to that line of thought, because now we're here, and it's like, more so than change, it's like these leaps of faith that invite all sorts of change. And on top of just like trusting in God throughout it. And I think we mentioned the fact that, like Pastor Dave approached us, and I'm sure he approached the board as well, and was like, hey, here's my dream. Here's this vision that I feel like God is putting on my heart. Like, should we do it? Like, is this something we can do? And we agreed as a leadership team, and I'm sure you guys were of the same mind as well. And I'm sure that was a moment for him. We'll have to ask him when we have him on the podcast next, but I'm sure that was a moment for him as well, where it was like, okay, like that's something I needed for this leap of faith that I'm taking.
Right.
The support of godly men and women in your life that are linked up with you and understand your heart and your passion and what you're doing, to be like, no, this lines up. This lines up with the Word of God. This lines up with, what this church is about. And we also feel like this is the season for that change and that leap of faith. And, and it's a lot more tricky than go do the thing. It's like, okay, this won't work. We have to pivot a little bit here. Okay, the wall's coming down, but now, we have to worry about the electricity and okay, now this room is open. For me, a sound guy, I'm thinking about like acoustics and reverb, and like now it's a lot more echoey in there. Like, can we make the sound work? And that's my mind, I'm not
logistics.
Yeah, exactly. That's my mind. And I'm sure for him, it's also other things that people are telling him, hey, did you account for this? Did you account for that? It's like all this other stuff. And like I said, we'll have to ask him when he gets here, but I mean, a change like that can invite a lot of just like doubt and fear and worries. And I'm sure that God is giving him those tidbits of just like, I got you. I'm here with you. And I'm grateful that we do have a pastor that is of that same mindset of like, like we have so many victories that we can talk about, this church as a whole, but not just being like, okay, done. Like we won and now we can just sit here. Instead, it's just like we're constantly, achieving and shooting for new things. And I've always respected that. And, and that's the way that we should all live. We should all be like ready.
Absolutely.
As tough as it is, to constantly be in a state of like, I don't know.
But this is the thing. How many times has somebody come to you and said, what's your goal for 5 years from now? Do you have a 5-year goal? Do you have a 5-year plan?
Right.
That was like the big thing. And I went through a phase where it was like, it was almost hilarious because I'd look back 5 years from where I was, at that moment, 5 years ago, if somebody would have said, I'd be here doing what I'm doing. If you'd have said that 5 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face.
Exactly.
Are you nuts?
Right.
But what I learned was flipping that around was if I make decisions today that align me with where God wants me to be 5 years from now, that's the path I want to take.
Yeah.
It's the micro decisions that we make in the moment, and just being obedient with each step. with each step. And then 5 years from now, you look back and go, man, I never could have planned this. I see how all those steps work together to put me here where God wants me to be. Now, some people have a 5-year plan. I'm not discrediting that.
Of course.
I'm just saying, for me, it's just been like, I'm not going to say, this is where I want to be in 5 years. And there can be value in that. But it was more about, God, I just want to be where you want me to be. So help me to make decisions today that align me with where you want me to be 5, 10, 15 years. And so we're kind of doing that as a church in the sense like, okay, we're banging out the back wall. We're expanding. But we're also, there's a longer term vision, because this church is going to continue to grow, not because we're so wonderful, but because God's moving.
Right. Yeah.
And God is using the people in this church. And it starts with the vision, and then, as a good leader does, surrounds himself with people who have the vision and talent to implement it.
So true.
And also to say, well, that's not going to work constructually. We gotta do something else, or that, this is a weight bearing thing, and so we gotta supplement. We gotta support that. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. We gotta work with the town and da da da. So there's people who had that kind of experience in knowledge and relationship, but that's God piecing. That's a team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, God is very strategic. And so we just got to follow and just obey and be willing to take that leap of faith. But it starts with vision. It starts with what, I just want to be where God wants me to be. And just help me to make decisions today that are going to be in the benefit to those around me and myself in my relationship with God 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as long as he gives me breath.
Right.
And then see where it goes from there.
Yeah. So rad.
Amen. I love that.
Yeah.
You said rad. It's like, what? Dude.
I didn't even notice I said rad. That's all subconscious in it. Dude, rad, dude.
It's because he said DC talk, so we're going back
Yeah.
into
Wow.
You brought us back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
We're going to start dressing differently
Yeah.
now.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, man.
Oh man, this is awesome. I love this. Thank you, man. Thank you for
thank you, Corey.
for inviting this this conversation. I'm grateful because this podcast is a great opportunity to encourage people, and also and we talked about this before, but it's like the vision of this is for us to kind of bare our souls and be like, hey man, like we have struggles, we've had and continue to have struggles with the things that you probably are struggling with right now, and just giving people a foothold to understand like how we tackled these things and how we're tackling these things right now. And so I'm grateful for you bearing your soul in the same way and just giving us your story.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I know, because I got something from that. I know people are definitely going to receive something from that.
I hope so, because and the thing is you don't have to be perfect. It's not based on your merit.
Yeah.
Right.
None of this is merit based.
Nope.
It can't be, it's not because I have it all together that God, shines his beacon and it's like, oh, there it is. It's nothing to do with that. So it's not about position. It's about being in position.
Right.
And just say, I want to be, God, you position me. You put me where you want to be, wherever it is, whenever it is, and I'll go.
Yeah.
Or I'll stay, or I'll just, you lead, I'll follow.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters, and let him, just trust him. It'll be all right.
We'll do it.
And you could be a complete goofball and feel like you got nothing in your pockets. But God's like, all I need is you.
That's it.
That's
Amen.
it.
Yep.
And we could do some amazing things.
Thank God.
It's pretty cool.
Right? Right?
Thank God, because I'm beautiful. Yep.
That's what I resonate with the most. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you so
it was
much
great.
for coming on the show. I'm so glad you were able to make it out. We'll definitely have to have you on again.
That's the test. Like, hey, thanks for coming. We're
Yeah.
never inviting you back.
You just don't say anything.
Yeah.
We watch you back.
We're actually not going to
watch
upload
you
this
back.
episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we absolutely love to have you on again.
Next
for sure.
next episode, I'm going to talk to Corey about my shed.
Oh, yeah. We didn't get to that.
You brought it up there before the podcast?
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, my
when
goodness.
you weren't in the room.
Okay.
Did she tell you how long she's had this just dream for?
No,
Like,
all I know is that, did I tell you about the shed? No. Okay, I'll save it for the
Is
podcast.
that what she said? All right, go for it. Give him your pitch. You have 1 minute. Give
How
him your-
cool would this be for us to have a podcast shed? Okay.
I'm in.
So like,
He's already sold.
it's like super dope somewhere out there, and people can come in. It's nice and comfy. It's chill. We can provide snacks, all these different things. But like, how cool would that be? We can edit in there.
Just a workstation, you know.
What are we waiting for?
Well, here's the thing. The wonderful people of our church, they've been donating to the Expansion Project, which is the name of the wall, but also our podcast.
Yeah, well, that's
so
a whole
we
separate
haven't
thing.
received anything yet. But
There should be some royalties involved.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, there should be like some like kickback or I don't know.
We're
If there's a
hoping
lawyer
someone-
out there.
Listen, I've been saying, if you go to Shed and you want to donate it to us, please
Right.
do. We'll take it.
Like the whole
and
Shed.
We'll do it.
Yeah,
we'll fix it
we'll
up.
Make it, we'll find a spot
Yeah,
out there somewhere.
we'll find a spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, heck
That's
yeah.
my dream.
All right,
Yeah.
I like it.
How cool would that
And then
be?
we just need to, insulate it and heating and cooling and electricity. And
That stuff we can worry about later.
Yeah, those are
Let's
details.
just get the shed,
Yeah.
and then we'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah. Step
I
one.
mean, you remember. I mean, you froze your tail off on that stage when we had outdoor services
we didn't even
possible.
get to talk about that.
with our little space heaters and whatever else in the winter and fans in the summer.
Before we got the big heater, we had those small like camping
Yep,
heaters. Yeah,
yep.
we had like 4 or 5.
Well, in the first, we didn't have sufficient ventilation, so
That's right.
we were all getting kind of loopy.
I forgot about that.
We're closed in,
We're like, man, this
and we got these propane heaters going on.
That's right. Smells like gas.
We all come out like, ugh.
like, man, we love you guys. Like,
I love you,
let's
man.
Just, let's just sing.
Let's
Guys.
Oh man. That's the
That's
best.
right. And then we got the big one
Yeah.
that we put in the wall,
Yeah.
and it was a lot more legitimate, but still,
But
yeah.
but you start and you learn, you know.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so you get your little podcast shed,
Yes.
and maybe the propane heaters would be good for the show
Yes.
because you get a little loopy.
That's true.
And then
yeah.
that's where the fun ensues.
And then we're just like, yeah, like the whole time. No more serious topics ever. We're
No.
just like,
We're just always
we're just
looping.
rambling the whole time.
Oh,
The
man.
sugar and propane fueled podcast.
I think it's a great idea.
Yes, yeah. So the next time we have you on, we'll have to talk about that because
All right.
what he's referencing is we did drive-in services for a while during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and we started when it was like decently warm out, right? And then we were like, okay, winter's gonna be here. What are we gonna do? So we progressively threw out ideas for how to enclose the space, but also to like heat it so that we wouldn't like freeze to death
Yeah.
while we're playing our instruments.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely a journey, and so yeah, we'll have to talk about that next time. There's a lot to talk about. That was an experience for sure, and I'm sure like a ton of other churches out there also have some experiences from that period
Totally.
of history. But yeah, we'll have to, when we bring you back on, we'll definitely have to talk about that because
All
I
right.
want to talk about it. But yeah, man, thank you so much for being
Thank you,
here.
Corey.
Thank you.
Thank you for
fun.
being on the podcast. And yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for checking us
Thanks
out.
for listening.
Thanks for coming back. We'll have another episode soon-ish.
We just won't tell you when.
We just won't tell
figure
you
it out.
when. It'll happen, and
Yep.
it'll be like a present.
Yep.
And
You'll be so excited. Be like, Christmas morning.
that's the joy we want to like instill in people
Exactly.
when they see that we've uploaded it.
It's Christmas.
Except Christmas, you know, is coming.
Yes, yeah.
This is
so-
like a pop up Christmas.
Yeah.
It literally is.
I
You
feel
never
like
know what you're going to get.
You don't overthink it. Just let it happen. There's no point thinking about the details.
Oh.
And you snorted, Stephanie, for the
Yeah,
record.
I always do. I
know.
It's a part of me.
It's a beautiful thing.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. All right. That's all we got.
That's it.
Love you guys.
Love you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.